Thanks for listening to AttorneyKnowsBest.com. If you hadn't heard, I'm using Anchor.fm to record this podcast. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First, Anchor.fm is free. That's right, totally free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. I listen to my podcasts on Google Podcast. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app now or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM to get started. Back to the podcast. Thanks for listening.
Attorney knows best. Intelligent interviews. Interesting insight. Intriguing information. Attorney knows best. Here's your host, Sean Bartley.
Welcome to another episode of Attorney Knows Best. I'm Sean Bartley. Today, we have the privilege of talking with highly accomplished and experienced attorney by the name of Brad Banks, who practices law in Marion County, Indiana. Brad Banks was a successful state's attorney or district attorney prosecutor. He prosecuted murder trials in the state of Indiana, city of Indianapolis, and now he's in private practice in Indiana, where he practices in a general practice firm of Banks and Brower. He handles criminal defense, family law, and a myriad of other issues. Welcome to the show today, Brad. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean.
How have you been? Long time no chat.
Yeah, I've been great. Just into, come with that, but I can't complain.
Right.
So,
tell us about your firm, Banks and Brower. You're in private practice. You're in a prosperous firm. Why'd you decide to go into private practice after being a successful prosecutor?
So when I was the prosecutor's office, at the time I left, I had been what was called a division chief. So I supervised about 38 attorneys.
38?
Yeah. All the bees. So I loved it because I was an attorney. I was getting to sort of also be a teacher, which was fun for me. But there were a lot of upward mobility left. From that position in Indianapolis, really the next highest level would be chief deputy, which is just a position because you're the elected's main go-to. The chief deputy changes anytime the elected. So I had sort of gone as high as you could go in the prosecutor in terms of that, and the ceiling in terms of the financial benefits limited in the government side. And so my business partner, Adam Brower, I actually supervised Adam. He was a prosecutor too. We were sitting around one day. We just gotten along well and had a lot of things in common. And hey, would you ever want to go in private practice? I said, yeah, I did it before. My first 3 years, I worked in a civil firm. So, but if I ever did it again, I'd want to be my own boss. And he goes, oh, that's how I'd want to do. And so we started talking about opening up our shop, and we literally spent the next year being prosecutors and planning business. So,
I mean, that's what I did when I was working in a private firm. My wife got out a pen and pad and a planning chart, and we planned it and we opened it. And, diving right in is hard to do, especially when you're making an income in a prosecutor's office, and then you're now going to have to eat what you kill, so to speak. In that transition, you got to plan for it. How did you plan for it?
Yeah, big challenge. So I have a very how should I put this? Thorough walk. And so when initially proposed this idea to her, she's very, very risk adverse. Mm-hmm. So She demanded seeing all the things. She wanted the business plan, income projections, a marketing plan, did all that, and I think that was good for us. But with adjustments, Adam and I both set aside just a few $1,000s and put it in our business account. Both started saving as we can. And my situation, it was more challenging. Not only was I providing the income for my, but I was also providing the health insurance. My work, which her job didn't have a health insurance option.
Wow.
So, she did a job and agreed to do that. She actually ended up getting a job with Indiana about 6 months before we transitioned to private practice, and so she was able to provide the family with health insurance because she's got a long-term condition where health insurance is a priority for us. We knew we had to take care of that, and so she sort of stepped up and still doing that today. She still works for the state of Indiana, and one thing she's really good at is providing really good health insurance.
Right. I love the state of Indiana. I had another potential guest ask me, he go, why do you have so many guests from Indiana? And I said, well, I went to law school there, and people in Indiana are great. And so I guess it has something to do with the government and health insurance. Who knew? But yeah, when I went into practice, one of the cool things for me is my wife is a teacher, and I was lucky enough to marry a teacher. Teachers were always my idol, and I was lucky enough to find a woman that would marry me who was a teacher, and she has great health insurance, so it made the transition easy. Curious question. What do you like better, being the big-time prosecutor or being the big-time private practice attorney?
That's a question. I think they both have their positives. I'd say the thing I miss most about prosecutor is you do have like you're serving that role of justice in your community. I also miss the people. Like 100 attorneys or 130 attorneys that work for the prosecutor's office in Indianapolis. So this network of people that you could sort of count on and rely on and go to for different ideas. The one thing I really like about private practice is when you're a prosecutor, the people you're prosecuting, people you're trying to convict, people you're trying to put in jail are pieces of paper. You don't know anything about them. You know their weight, color, their race, and their gender. That's it. That's the only thing you know about them. And then this one bad thing that they've alleged to have been done. I know in private practice, I get to know their whole story, and you get to see, what led to this situation themselves in. It's a lot more than what that piece of paper says, most of it. And so I'd say really the thing I love most about my current huge section of our clients that are involved in criminal charges also have either a mental health condition, drug addiction, or both. And since that we're especially facing drug addictions, I see just to get them out of trouble, but also try to get them back on the right path. I tell my clients all the time, I'm an oddity in my business. If you don't become a client again, that means we've done things right.
Yes.
When I see it over and over again, things aren't going real well,
But you don't have any say-so in how they conduct their lives other than how they behave in a trial or how they behave in your office or how they behave in making the decision after you advise them. So what they do after your representation really is out of your control. So you can only do the best that you can do while you're representing them in court and advising them on how to, get the best possible outcome, especially if they're a criminal client.
Yeah, we do a lot, though, in terms of connecting them with and working on their case. We're helping them. We'll talk to them, figure out what's going on, if they need, and even if they need to go inpatient for a drug or something like that. We've got relationships with all those different providers where we can put them in touch with the right people to try, that meets their budget, meets their situation as best as possible. And so, if we can help them help themselves, that also helps us in their case too, right? Because prosecutors are going to be, more reasonable as somebody that's trying to on the right path. You can show that they're taking those steps. It's a win-win. It's a win for the client. It's a win for the case. I've got a handful of clients I stay in touch with long term.
Right.
Can see sort of the fruits of our labor too.
Well, and also referrals.
Absolutely.
You need to stay in touch with them for referrals. You mentioned something that is really important, and one of the reasons why I do the podcast is you said stories. So when you were a prosecutor, the only story you got was the biographical facts on a sheet of paper, and then as a attorney in private practice, you actually get to have a conversation with the people you're representing or the witnesses that you may need to call to help the person that you're representing. So you get a good story. Let's talk about stories. So you were a prosecutor and you did what is the basis for, I would dare to say, out of television dramas, police and prosecutor stories dominate TV fiction dramas, except you did it for real. How close are TV dramas to being a prosecutor? How close?
So it's all over the board, right? So I think the Law and Order, back as the prosecutor, the courtroom scenes on that show, I would say, are the closest to what it's like in real life. I don't think any of them get it right.
Right.
Then you got the other side of things, like I don't know if you remember the old Boston Legal.
I remember that one.
Yeah, James Spader, making 25-minute colloquies and have nothing to do with the case.
Right.
That's not realistic. So what you don't see in Hollywood is all the nuts of it, the hours of preparation, the preparation of witnesses, the witnesses that told you they were going to be there in the morning and try up.
Wow. But as a prosecutor, you can go get those witnesses, right? Can you send a police officer to go get them?
If you can find them.
If you can find them. Interesting. So, what is your favorite story to tell as a prosecutor where you felt you did your best work, justice was served, and the family came up to you, maybe a victim's family came up to you afterward, or the defendant's family, for that matter, came up to you? Do you have a story that you think defines your career as a prosecutor or a case?
Yeah, there was a case, I believe it was back in 2008. And I remember it well because not only was I doing this trial, but my wife was pregnant and we were moving the week of trial homes. So it was a lot of stress going on at the same time. It was a really sad case, boyfriend and girlfriend. They met at rehab, not a great place to start a foundation for a relationship. Came both quite honestly, and the victim came from families living in a nice area, and police finally get called, and victim was ultimately set on fire and burnt to death. It's called full thickness burns.
Wait a minute. So the boyfriend and girlfriend set someone on fire?
Boyfriend set girlfriend on fire.
Wow.
Yeah. And she had full thickness burn for 80%. That means you're basically burnt to the bone, essentially. But she lived for 6 weeks after that. Some other details, if I remember correctly, she passed away on Mother's Day. Family was wasn't from here. I think they're actually from out but where you are, and so that was difficult for them because she was here in an Indiana hospital for 6 weeks in intensive care times. They were essentially living out of their backs up until she passed away, and then what was really interesting, there was a lot of different theories thrown at me from the defense. One, everything from it was a lighting a gas grill accident to she did it herself. And really interesting facts in that right before she was conscious and never gained consciousness, she made some statements to the ambulance drivers on the way to the hospital that were pretty damning for the defendant and played a crucial role in the case. Kudos to the detective who took speak to the ambulance drivers and get those statements, because those guys don't always want to be involved in criminal cases, and they won't just offer that stuff up. So detective had tracked that down. That was, and one of the really neat parts of it was we worked with the local ATF agency who has a fire laboratory headquarters in, I think they're in Virginia, if I remember right. And they took the remnants of the victim's clothing that was left after the fire, so they knew exactly what kind of clothing she was wearing, and then placed that same clothing on and videotaped a recreation of what the fire would have been like.
Whoa.
So that the jury could really sense sort of what the victim went through. And it's interesting, Sean, what a little bit of gasoline will do if it's set on fire on somebody's clothing. It was less than a cup that was necessary to those injuries.
What did she say to the ambulance drivers while they were taking her to the hospital?
She basically told him he set her on fire. Now, they didn't get a lot of the details, so still there's a lot of holes to fill in there, and he gave some explanations about, one of the stories that they got in, he was in the yard, and as he walked by with a gas can, she grabbed it, and it slipped on her, and then a little bit later, she lit a cigarette, and that's what caused it. That was one of the stories. One of the interesting things in that case that I learned is it's virtually impossible to light gasoline with a cigarette. So we actually did all these cool experiments with the jury on video where they poured gasoline, puffed it as hot as they could get it, extinguished it in the gasoline, and nothing happens. It's just not a high enough so you see those, those Hollywood videos where, the guy flips a cigarette.
Yeah.
And can't.
Really?
It's dangerous to smoke around gas. It's dangerous to light the cigarette around gas, but the cigarette itself can't start gasoline on fire. So that sort of threw that issue out of the equation. In addition to that, one that was really interesting was the parts of the victim that wasn't burnt was her hands, almost like cut off. And so it started with where she was lighting a and injury to her.
Well, no injury to her hand. That case sounds difficult because you didn't have a victim. I mean, in murder cases, you don't have a victim that can testify. And then you have to piece together with the coordination of your detectives, police officers, forensic experts, medical professionals, and you have to coordinate all this to create a story, and it has to be concrete. You have to be 100% concrete in it. You can't be 90%. You can't be 95%. You have to be 100% because all they need is one juror to have a scintilla of doubt, and that person doesn't get convicted. How do you coordinate all that information, and how long does it take?
And that was by far the most involved trial where I was first chair. I had a great second chair, lady that's still a friend of mine today. So she was very organized and helped a lot. She did a lot of the witness preps and things too. I think we had 20-some witnesses, 100-some exhibits. The chief of the Wishard Burn Unit here in Indianapolis was one of us. He was fantastic. Not everybody in the medical profession are excited about testifying. You have to convince us that it's the right thing to do, especially, in these kind of cases, they're not getting paid for their time, right? So You're just trying to get appeal to their sense of justice when they're called to testify. It was awesome. He really stepped up to the plate and described the nature of the injuries and sort of shot some of the defense's theory. But yeah, the case was followed in USA. All the local media followed it, so it got a lot of attention, mainly because of the dramatic nature of the mechanism of injury. There was actually extinguished in the bathtub of the home, and a lot of evidence spread out throughout this entire scene. So there was a lot of stuff to work with. And throwing that on top of the things I had going on in my personal life. So there was a period of time. There was 2 or 3 sleepless nights in there.
Only 2 or 3? Private practice, you probably have many sleepless nights.
It's a different stress.
Beast. It's a different stress. Was there any history of domestic violence between that couple, the victim and her boyfriend, and the assailant? I mean, or was it out of the blue?
No. Almost always lots of warning signs after the fact. So yeah, there was plenty of history of domestic violence, and then the relationship was filled with abuse on both sides too. So that certainly.
Were you able to get that in as evidence in the trial?
I think that Indiana's strict on what we call 404B or prior bad acts, but there is a little niche carved out for domestic violence. So I don't recall specifically in this case, but I think we can do that in.
So you took it to trial. Did you win?
Yes.
What was the outcome? It was a jury trial. What was the outcome?
Yeah, guilty. So they deliberated for several hours. I think we finished on a Friday, got the verdict back late Friday night. Judge sentenced him actually to the minimum, which I think at the time the structure's all changed in Indiana since there. Maybe it was 45 years.
So he got 45 years. That was the statutory minimum?
Correct, which you get back then, you got 2-for-1 credit. So that really means 22 and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the defendant has a chance of getting out eventually.
Oh, yeah, they're young people in their early 30s, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he'll likely see the day again.
Did this story get any press?
Yeah, it was. That's been one of the things that's been sort of interesting and sad. Indianapolis has such a high murder rate; it doesn't cover like it used to. When I was in the homicide unit, like the Indianapolis Star had a reporter that was basically assigned to the courts, and so we saw them every day. They don't do that at all. Local media was at murder trials, and have a reporter sitting in the trial and come before and after, and were in the hallway. That's pretty much gone away unless it's a really big news story. But they did all that. Major news in the local area. There was USA Today wrote a story on it. They had all the media surrounding it at the time.
When you're handling a trial like this that I would say has a high emotional impact in the community, the victim's family, maybe the first responding officers, how do you balance your civility? And what I mean is, do you get emotional or do you stay neutral when you're prosecuting a case as horrid as this?
Yeah, that's a challenge because you do get to know the family. That happened in 2008. I stay in touch with that family. Excuse me. Today, the victim lister sends me a Christmas card every year, and so you do need to know these people, and you are their extension of justice, right? You're it for them. You're their voice. And so, but to be effective, you got to be able to draw that line. And I think juries like to see passion. They like to see emotion. because then I always train attorneys. They feel that you feel it, then your mental's better. So they should want to, or they should feel that you believe in your core. You need to be able to demonstrate that. If you do that, if you're going through the emotions and just sort of, selling them your line of goods without looking if you believe it yourself, they see that. So you gotta, I think you can take that personal relationship you sort of develop with the family and the case and nurture it in a way that works well for the case. But you can't get it where you can't bring tears in the middle of trial.
Well, I would never think an attorney would break down in tears in the middle of trial, but maybe in closing argument to get the jury on your side. Maybe you can cry a little bit. Yeah, it can happen. I mean, murder cases are very dramatic, especially when you as an individual, how you grew up and the values you have, that you couldn't even imagine killing somebody, yet now you're handling a case where somebody actually did it. That is a tough. I think that's a tough balance.
Everything from had cases, stabbings, death, burnt to death, a hammer head, you name it, seen it, and it's a brutal world. You do. I was a little bit unhealthy. I spent 2 years in the homicide unit where I did nothing but murder or attempt murder cases. I think that's a little unhealthy.
Really?
I had a case that was really where this grandmother came to every single pretrial. And, in a murder case, you get a zillion of them. And most of them are giving the judge an update, and everybody's doing their thing, and you leave. And you know how it is. You're in the business. This is all you do. You do it every day. You joke around with your defense attorneys. You're rubbing elbows. And we had one of the trials where I was joking around with the defense attorney about something else not related to the case. And after the pretrial is over, I'd always go speak to grandma and, where we're at the case. And, she pulled me aside and she goes, "How come you guys are joking around so much?" And it really sort of a little bit. You become sort of numb to what you're doing every day, and you sort of forget a little about the people in there and the most emotional thing in their life. So you always have to sort of remind yourself of that, and it's tough when you're doing it every day because it's not healthy for you to be sort of in that mindset either, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine it. I mean, I worked in the prosecutor's office for a summer in Riverside County, California, and super conservative county. And when I would I was doing felony preliminary hearings, and I would get the file and I would open it up, and if it was like a person with multiple arrests or multiple convictions, you could see the how can I say it? The progression of their mug shots, especially if they're a drug addict, right? And so I would always look at it and say, wow, I can't believe this. And then the seasoned prosecutor would say, it's typical. What are you looking at it for? Who cares? Let's focus on what's now. And they were like jaded, right? We were doing felony preliminary hearings, and most of the people I was working with were career prosecutors, and they were doing their cycle through the department where, you go from, you like cycle through different phases of the prosecutor's office. But I thought I was tough, and I thought I was emotionally tough. I thought I was cold-blooded. But I spoke with our friend Tammy Napier about it, and I said, I'm not that tough, and I couldn't do it. But when you talk about the emotional health of the attorney, a lot of people don't consider attorneys' emotional health at all. It's like they come to us with it would be like we're like cancer doctors, right? Or emergency surgeons, right? And nobody blames the cancer doctor or the emergency surgeon for the patient's health condition. but they blame the attorney for the win or the loss, and might even transfer or blame you for the person's death if you can't get a conviction. What did you do to maintain your mental health working in the homicide division?
It was tough. One of the reasons I did my Indianapolis as a supervisor asked for that. I told them, hey, look, I need to do something different for a while. Story I told you about where I sort of, she wasn't a grandmother, taken aback by how close we were to such a big deal. That was a check for me in terms of, hey, I need to recenter myself a little bit with the normal world, and but it was tough. So the upside of being in the homicide unit is you had a smaller caseload, right? So you could focus on the case. I think the most I ever had at one time was 12, and I had my caseload down to 4 or 5 at one point during the 2 years. So you weren't, you knew your as well. So you knew everything inside and out, and that was good. So it made you real confident in what you were doing. But the flip side of that was every single case you had was a big deal. And at that time, there was a tremendous amount of in the office. If you're in the high unit, you were expected to win. So there was that pressure there.
Expected to win.
Yeah, if you have a DUI or even just an old school theft story, nobody cared about that stuff.
Right.
But you're trying a murder case, they put you there because they thought you were going to win it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of pressure. So I don't think I did special to maintain my mental health, and I just know when it was time to do something different.
When you were in law school, I remember you being pretty laid back, amiable, fun-loving. I never pictured you as a tough criminal prosecutor. Did you know you wanted to be a prosecutor when you were in law school?
Yeah, I went to school originally to be a prosecutor. The only reason I didn't start out right away in law school, I clerked for a local firm there in Valdosta, and they offered me a job with the whole semester left in our third year. And so at the time, I was newly married. I got married between my second and third year of law school. My wife was making a whopping $10 an hour, so having a job on the table was a big deal. So I took it, but it didn't take me long, 2.5, 3 years to realize, that's where my heart was. I started in North Indianapolis and went down to for the last 6 years. My prosecution. Yeah, I went to law school with that knowledge. People, I don't know. My situation is kind of interesting. I was probably one of the shyest kids in my high school.
Yeah.
Very, very quiet. People were thinking it wasn't because of such wise things. It was just because I didn't talk very well.
I was shy too. People can't believe that I was shy, and I go, yeah, I'm still shy, but I learned. I worked before I went to law school, so I worked for 3 years in the corporate world, and I learned that you have to talk and you have to communicate, and shyness is for scientists and engineers. Nobody else can be shy.
I think that's right, Sean, and I found my voice probably largely in undergrad. Law school was an interesting experience for me. I treated it like a job because I was dating my wife, who was still an undergrad at Purdue. So every weekend I was pretty much going to see her, which means I'd be studying weekends. So I was going to class, interning at a law firm, and studying every night. I did. And so I didn't get a chance to get involved in the social side of law school as much maybe some other people did. I probably found my voice mostly in undergrad. I chalked that up to being in a fraternity, really. I think that was a hugely positive experience for me. Definitely made come out of my shell a little bit and be comfortable. Had some leadership positions in the facility, and that definitely was positive for me in terms of experience and getting comfortable. And I think when you're shy, you not to worry about what you're thinking or saying and what other people think about it. And then once you realize, Peyton Manning rolls out of bed and puts his pants on the same way I do.
Yep, he does. Speaking of Peyton Manning, who's that on your back wall behind you?
That's him.
Oh, that's him? Okay.
That's a lithograph. That's actually a painting originally.
Oh, wow. That's great. Did you do it? Let's talk about your private practice and how you being a prosecutor helps you now, and what's the benefit of your clients hiring you because you were a prosecutor before?
Yeah, from a marketing perspective, probably the number one mentioned. They love the fact that it was homicide that I oversaw the drunk driving prosecutors, all the mental prosecutors. I've got a ton of relationships that respected by the judges and courts largely because of my time as a prosecutor, and clients get they love the fact that I've been on the other side and understand that perspective. It also means I've got good relationships with prosecutors too, in large part. One of the nice things about having worked in Indianapolis, so many prosecutors there, Indianapolis doesn't pay the greatest, so they've been dispersed all over the state. Take a perfect example, right? So I've got relationships with these prosecutors. They're all in these little podunks because they're making more money now.
Yeah, I can't believe what I think Tammy Napier told me Indiana has 90 counties or something like that.
Oh, yeah. We have the most elected officials in the country, I believe it is.
Wow.
We elect the clerk. We elect the surveyor.
I think that's good, though. I think it's good. I mean, and the reason why I think it's good is because you have a true representative government at every little nook and cranny of the government. So, I mean, I think it's good.
Yeah, it's good. We elect the coroner, and people with just DD coroner. So you never know.
So if I was an alleged criminal, mm-hmm. and I open up the phone book and I say, who do I choose from? Why would I choose you, Brad? Why would I choose Banks and Brower?
Sean, you're showing yourself your age by saying you're opening the phone book. You are finding Banks and Brower in the phone book.
So, no, I do a Google search. All right, I do a Google search. Or Yahoo search. Yahoo. I don't even know. Yeah, Yahoo. Or an AOL search. But I'm doing an AOL search, a Google search, a Yahoo search, and I find Banks and Brower. Why do I choose you? You have a hot logo, by the way. Great logo.
Thank you. Yeah, we spend a lot of money in marketing. We do. A lot of it's geared online. One of the things, we have a positive reviews on Google. I think we have 300 plus 5 stars. That's all 100% we've worked with. They have done, and we don't incentivize them to do that. We just provide customer service, and that's what I would say is the number one thing in having a successful firm. Man, a lot of lawyers are customer service,
right? And
if you are, then you stand out. You got to return their phone calls at the time and make them come with what they're going through. It doesn't mean you have to be the most dynamic. It's helpful to be dynamic in the courtroom. You can be a really good advocate for your client and great customer service and be a successful attorney.
Mm-hmm. The Google reviews thing is kind of funny because I have great customer service skills because I was in the customer service business before I went to law school. But you can get somebody who just has a wild hair up their hiney and they could just be like assault you on a review and you're like, this wasn't the case and this is not how it worked. I mean, you could like work your tail off for somebody and the court decides, you don't decide because they have a relationship and you get scoured on Google, but you're fortunate to have 300 5-star ratings and you know it off the top of your head. Can you give me an example of when your experience as a prosecutor paid off for one of your family law clients or one of your criminal clients?
I think where the experience plays off for my criminal clients the most is there's nothing that teaches you how to be a trial lawyer better, in my opinion, than prosecutor, because you are forced to do tough things. With sometimes when I was a major felony prosecutor, I was handling below murder, everything below murder. I was in the court that was sort of called the Rocket, and I had 2 cases still set on the same day, and the first one, which was the newer case, ingested. Second got called up. I was prepared to try to have all my witnesses ready. Well, my one of my 2 victims was in the emergency room and was not going to be released to do the trial. So I told the judge, I said, Judge, I hate to do this, but I need a last-minute continuance. My victim's in the emergency room. I've got my other victim, but there's two separate victims, 2 serious charges, and I was given the choice: move forward on the cases you're here on, or that one I congested. You're going to try that one. You pick.
That's unfair.
Well, to be able to think critically on your feet under tough situations. And so I think that rolls over to you being able to be the advocate you can be for your defense client. Plus, the other thing, I've probably done somewhere around 80 jury trials. When you have that experience, people get to know you know how to do the job. That helps build on your side too.
Now you do family law cases also, right?
So when I first started our firm, Adam and I did family law.
Mm-hmm.
As we've grown, we have hired others to do it.
Okay. Family law is tough. I have a practice and we do some family law stuff. It's really tough because the emotions involved. I mean, you think a murder case has a lot of emotions. Family law has a great deal of emotions. And I think probably your experience in handling the emotional side of murder cases gives your firm an advantage in handling family law cases also. Do you ever see any similarities between family law cases and murder cases, criminal cases, or a prelude to a criminal case or murder case?
Yeah, it's. I think the statistic is somewhere north of 40% of homicides are tied to domestic violence. So yeah, we see domestic violence all the time on the law side. I'll say when we did do family law, when Adam and I were doing the divorces ourselves, the one thing I think being a prosecutor really helped at was detaching yourself from that emotion and getting yourself to be able to focus on was really important to your client, despite what they may be getting hung up on. And a lot of lawyers have just done family law, I think, caught up in that and that emotion. I mean, I tell people all the time, there ain't nothing civil about the civil practice of law. Criminals are way more civil than civil.
Yeah, I find that in civil law that some of the things that our clients or my opposition's clients want their attorneys to do and what their attorneys are willing to do for them always pushes the envelope. As long as they don't lie, cheat, or steal, it's a fight. It's a contest, right?
Well, did you have were you with Gaffney on professional responsibility?
I don't know if it was Gaffney or Bodensteiner. I don't remember.
But Gaffney was that quirky Harvard guy, right?
Yeah, I know Gaffney. I have a bad story with Gaffney giving me a B plus because this is a funny story. I'm going to have a journalist come on in one of my episodes coming up. But I told him that you can't trust the press. You can't trust the press. The press is always going to bend it, right? And Gaffney made me go pull something from a journalists association about the ethics of journalism and their requirements and how to behave. And then I went through their principles and I told them how journalists violate every one of them, right? And so it was a seminar class. Everybody else in the class got an A. I got a B plus. So he took it out on me because I wouldn't go his way. But what did Gaffney say to you about professional responsibility?
Yeah, what I remember, most about that class was he stressed to us that you're not a gun. You are not that your client to pick up and fire in whatever direction they want.
Oh.
And that's something I've always remembered, that, it's your job to be their advocate. It's not your job to be their weapon. Sometimes they'll ask you to do things. You just have to say no. And I think that sometimes in family law, all that advice, attorneys get nasty and personal with you on family law stuff. I mean, I had one call me a spoiled brat. And
that was a leverage technique.
This client, are you so bad?
That was a leverage technique. Call you a spoiled brat? That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had attorneys say crazy stuff to me, and most of the time I just laugh. I'm like, this is not professional, and you're calling me a spoiled brat? This is a highbrow profession. Calling you a spoiled brat.
I mean, she was getting so much, she's turned and pointing and like hitting me in the chest, and I said, "You're gonna have to calm down. You're gonna have a heart attack."
She was probably doing that because you were a former prosecutor and she knew your reputation for being tough.
Well, I think that was a perception that was there. The other thing that is good about being a prosecutor, you're not afraid to litigate.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of us are afraid to litigate. They makes them nervous to be in the courtroom. Man, it's nothing to litigate. And when you're a prosecutor, you've litigated so much. Enjoy being in the courtroom. So if a client in a family law case needed to go to court and had some, silly financial records you had to get admitted, that wasn't any big deal to you. You've done that 100 times, something similar to that. So that's what I think it's a good skill set too. It's you might do 6 juries in 1 month sometimes in Marion County, So it's just you learn how to roll with it. You learn some bad habits too. They do things very off the cuff sometimes there in terms of jury selection and things of that nature. But it does give you a great foundation for how to litigate in the courtroom.
Did you grow up in Marion County or Indianapolis?
Now, I grew up in a town called Marion, but that's, if you know where Wayne, Indiana is, it's literally the halfway point of Indianapolis and Fort Wayne, about an hour north of Indianapolis.
Okay.
So, yeah.
The reason why I was asking is I've always had this idyllic image of Indianapolis, Indiana. And so from time to time, I mean, Indiana's been in the national news a lot lately with homicides. And it's like shocking because you're smack dab in middle America. I would say Indianapolis and Chicago are like the capitals of the Midwest, right? And then Indianapolis is central to the South and the Midwest. And so maybe, in terms of geographic location, I would think Indiana and Indianapolis would be more of a Midwest melting pot with the merging of the South and the Midwest, East, West. But what's so striking to me is that it has a large murder rate, a high murder rate. And it's shocking to me because that's not my image of Indianapolis. It's like a utopia. I went there for like business meetings and law school. I went there for NCAA tournament basketball games, and it was like Circle Center or something. And I was just like, wow, this is a beautiful city. And then I lived in LA for 3 years prior to going to law school. And I like rap music, and I particularly like gangster rap, even though I didn't grow up in it, and I don't advocate the lifestyle or the messages, but the melodies and the creativity of the artist is something. And there was a song by a rap artist named DJ Quick that was from the 1990s, and he had a song that said "Just Like Compton," and one of the lyrics is, "Finally got the CPT off the other cities," and cuss word, no longer just an underground hit. And so when I look at Indianapolis, I'm like, why is there all this violence? Is there a crime problem? What's the root of the violence in Indianapolis?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's going definitely on a high point now. When I was in the homicide unit in 2007 through 2009, we're in a high cycle. That's what created the homicide unit. It didn't exist. They decided they needed some people to focus on it. Last year, we settled for homicides in a year. We're so far doing better this year. I think that's more tied to the pandemic than it is violence being down. So Indianapolis has historically done a great job of a bubble around downtown. So if you go downtown Indianapolis, you feel super safe. Everything's very close together. That's why people love Indianapolis. You can from the football stadium to the convention center, hotel, and never go outside. It was all interconnected by tunnels and walkways, and they're just right there together. You go 5 blocks out downtown in any direction, and it's just a different picture. Indianapolis several years ago did what's called Unigov and turned the entire county into. So it grew its numbers drastically by that, but it does incorporate more of the criminal areas, the more crime-ridden parts of the city, and it's tough, Sean. I don't know the answer. Things that we're seeing people over are just, it's hard to understand. One you probably saw in the media recently was the 17-year-old that shot 5 of his family members, and I think 4 of them died, and the pregnant mom died. And because they were mad at him for missing curfew. Mm-hmm.
And he was a gangster rapper too.
Yeah, but you don't, I mean, when the beef is that,
right.
I mean, hard to know what the answer is.
Yeah, it's tough. If somebody's been accused of a crime and their family is looking for a lawyer to help them out or represent them, what are the 3 bits of advice you would share with them?
Yeah, I think number one, most experienced attorney you can afford. Look for somebody that has done trials, knows the way around, because ultimately 90-some% of criminal cases settle without a trial, right? But in order to position a case to settle at its best value, you have to know how to prepare it for trial. So you need to have somebody that's got the trial chops behind it. And then I'd say the third thing is look for a well established system in terms of the firm. So, you know, and for example, our law firm, we use Clio. I don't know what client management system you use, but
we use Clio also. Yep.
Yeah, it's great. It provides all these updates, and clients automatically they can get into their electronic file and check it out. So, you know, how much is the foundation there in that firm to provide that good customer service experience for you? But I'd say number 1 and 2 is experience and ability to go to trial if you needed to. Those are probably, I think, the 2 most important. I think a lot of times people make the mistake of buying the cheapest attorney they can find. I'll tell clients all the time when they call me and they can't afford my prices, that happens, that, you know, if you can't afford to get an attorney, you're probably going to be better off the public defender, because there's some really talented defenders.
And they're true believers, and they're there for the career, and they're going to really fight for you. Yeah, that's true.
They get a bad rap. They'll say, we get called all the time. I don't have an attorney. I have a public defender. Yeah, that means an attorney. But, okay, but,
right.
There's some really good talent lawyers there that, if you're just on a first guy off the street that is just going to be looking to plead your case as quick as they can, that's not always going to be the best situation for you.
Yeah, I've seen, I don't practice criminal law. Just don't, like I said, I don't have the chops or the guts for it. And I've seen attorneys plead people out, and I'm walking out of the courtroom, and the defendant comes and talks to me and says, "What just happened there?" And I go, "Well, you got to talk to your attorney and figure it out, because I don't practice criminal law." And they'll say, "Well, did I just plead to something?" And I go, "Yeah, he didn't tell you." Saw one case where there was sometimes I'll have a case and I'll just sit in the courtroom just to observe, to just like hone my craft by watching other people perform. It's kind of like a basketball player watching tape. And so I'll just sit there and watch. And there was a defendant who I think had an attorney that was like a plea guy, right? And he pled this guy out. There were 10 people in the house, and they found cocaine in the bathroom commode tank. They charged everybody in the house with the cocaine, right? And this guy said, "It wasn't even my cocaine." And I said, "Well, what did he plead you to?" He goes, "He pled me for time served." The guy was in jail for like 3 days, a weekend, and 3 years probation. And I said, "How many people were in the house?" He said, 10. And I said, "How much did you pay him?" He goes, $5,000. I said, "Was it your house?" He goes, "No." I said, "Did you have cash on you?" He goes, "No." I said, "Are you a drug user?" "No." I said, "I don't know, but it sounds curious to me. 3 years probation, and you were a guest in the house where there was cocaine." So yeah, that was kind of, but I don't, and I said, "I don't practice criminal law, so don't ask me."
Like 9 is a reasonable doubt to me.
It was crazy. I was like, I don't know, but that's why I don't practice criminal law.
It's tough, and you also, you have competing client goals too. I mean, do they want to have it over as possible? Are they in jail and they get a deal that gets them out? Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what your clients consider. And so you have a lot of stuff to work through them with to make sure that you're getting them the best result, but also the result that's right for them.
So in closing, Brad, I appreciate you taking this time out to talk with us and share about your practice and the things you do and your experience and why it matters for people that are going to hire you and for your clients that currently are represented by you. In closing, what is your hope for your clients and for the law and for you being successful for them?
Well, like I said, to me, success, well, my client, I don't see a criminal law client. Maybe they refer business to come see me for a family law matter or something like that. But I love the client that's 17, 18, 19, 20 years old that still can be put back on that right path. I like all my clients are in their 40s, and then it's their 15th or 16th time in the system. That's a hard thing to get on the right path. And so just helping people, I mean, that's what it really comes down to. People get down in the dumps about their situation. One thing that I was blessed with parents that were hardworking and put a lot of effort into me, right, and including financially, and helped me get through school. And, I see clients all the time who come from single family homes, and that one parent might be a drug addict. Mm-hmm. That's all they've ever experienced in their life, right? And crap, selling marijuana, put any money in their pocket. They don't know anything else to do. That's a different experience, right? And so all like that, showing them that, hey, there's a way to do things. and trying to give them some of the tools to start putting that in play. That's fun and super rewarding.
Is there anything else you'd like the audience or clients to know about you, Brad, that you think would be helpful in them making the decision to hire you or become a lawyer or a prosecutor like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I sets our firm apart, we go above and beyond of being accessible to our clients. Despite maybe what our spouse would like, it's very common for our clients to have our cell phone numbers, and us getting calls weekends and evenings. We have an attorney every weekend, 24 hours a day. So if there's something down, you got picked up on a warrant you didn't expect or something like that, you're going to be able to get a hold of somebody and get answers at night at 2 a.m. And not have to wait till Monday at 8, right? And that's how we do things. We expect a lot of the attorneys that work with us. We expect a lot of ourselves. And in the return to the client is an excellent access and customer service.
That's excellent. I always like to give my guests an opportunity to ask me a question. I do all the questioning usually in most of my life. Even
Sure.
if I go to a cocktail party, I'm asking the questions and not answering them. Is there anything you'd like to ask me?
Yeah, if you were a lawyer, what would you be?
If I wasn't a lawyer, what would I be? Well, it's kind of funny. So lawyering is fun to me because it's always new. The client stories are always new. No two client stories are alike. The facts may be similar and the stories may be similar, but they're not alike. What would I be? If I had to do it all over again, I'd probably be an athletic coach, but I got turned off to athletics and coaching because unfortunately, when I went to college, I had a bunch of dumb coaches. The profession has changed now. It's like you got to be really smart now. It's no longer just meathead, line up and bang them in the head and quote unquote kick their butt.
Analytics all over the place now.
Analytics all over the place, smart decisions. It's more about being smart than being tough. It's like being smart and then being tough. And so if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably be doing something in athletics, maybe coaching, maybe an administrative position, something in athletics. I love athletics. I miss it. But I got turned off because I felt like everybody was dumb. I had coaches that couldn't spell. I had coaches that couldn't read. I remember in college I had this coach who was a jerk, and he would give every game day or every day pregame. The day before the game, we had to take a test on what the defense is supposed to do on what call down and distance. I would write out everything everybody was supposed to do. Defensive line, linebackers, DBs. I was a defensive back. And he would always go, "Oh, you think you're so smart, don't you? You think you're so smart." And I was just like, "No, this is dumb. This is easy," right? And really what he should have been saying is, "God, you really know what's going on, and you're prepared to make a play because you know what everybody else is supposed to be doing," right? And so if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably be an athletic coach. I love sports. I love the benefit of sports and what it lends to other areas and aspects of our life. I mean, one of the reasons why America leads the rest of the world is because of athletics and team building and striving and the goal to always get better. Like one championship isn't enough, right? You got to get more. You got to get 7. You got to get 3. You got to get 4. You got to get in the Hall of Fame, right? And so if I had to do it all over again, I would do something in sports. What's interesting, I don't know if you know this or not, but there's someone in Indianapolis that's like the bigwig of the NCAA that went to Valpo with us. She was a 3L when we were 1Ls, and she's head of something in the NCAA. I won't drop her name here, but I'll tell you offline. Yeah,
Okay,
but I'd be something in athletics. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting answer.
Yep. But yeah, I didn't discover lawyering until late in life. I really didn't know about it until after undergrad or my last semester of undergrad did I ever consider being a lawyer. But you know, I was always strong in my studies, so it opened up opportunities for me because I was always a great student athlete. Yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Well, hey, thanks, Brad, for taking time out to talk with us and share with our audience on Attorney Knows Best. If people want to get in contact with you, Brad, what's the best way?
My office number is 317-870-0019.
Can you repeat that again?
317-870-0019.
Okay.
Or emails brad.banksbrower, BROWER.com.
Banksbrower.com.
His last name all the time.
Okay. Yeah. So when I hear Banks Brower, I always want to put an S at the end of Brower too. Banks Browers. Yeah.
Or Bauer.
Yeah.
Bauer.
Yeah. You should buy both of those names from GoDaddy and point them to there just in case people get it wrong. So they can call you. They can email you. What are your hours of operation? Can somebody just walk in if they're in a bind?
Yeah. 2 walk-ins this week. It's rare. There's 7 of us, 7 attorneys here, so we don't have somebody that could somebody pretty much right away. Our phones are answered live between the hours of 8 and 5, Monday through Friday. After hours, we have an auto attendant. You can literally get an option that says talk to a criminal attorney now, and it forwards to all the criminal attorneys in our firm, and somebody will answer.
Great.
And there's an assigned one to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but we're literally accessible 24 hours.
That's great. Well, thanks again. If anybody needs an attorney in Indiana or Indianapolis, especially Indianapolis metropolitan area in the areas of criminal law and family law, be sure to give Banks and Brower a call, especially Brad.
Appreciate that, Sean.
All right.
Yeah, it's great talking with you.
Great talking with you, too. Have an excellent week.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Keep them free, man. Keep them free.
Attorney knows best. Intelligent questions. Interesting interviews. Informative insight.